In this module, we are going to learn about Level 1 intervention strategies. Our essential question is, what types of strategies are effective in asserting expectations for students who do not respond to proactive measures? By the end of this session, we hope that you know that Level 1 interventions begin a progress of progressive intervention to discourage misbehaviors from continuing. Level 1 interventions are critical for establishing boundaries for the students, and they communicate your tolerance levels to the class. We hope that by the end of this session you understand that Level 1 intervention strategies allow the teacher to manage logically instead of disciplining emotionally, and that these strategies can also be considered proactive in that they are determined ahead of time and are ready to be put into action if and when they are needed. By the end of this session, you should be able to add the strategies shared in the Proactive module to continue creating a solid and effective classroom management plan. Low-level interventions are the beginnings to a process of progressive intervention to discourage misbehaviors from continuing. It is critical for teachers to establish boundaries for the students from the first day of school. Use the first 3 weeks of schools to communicate your tolerance levels, especially regarding noise level. Low-level interventions allow the teacher to manage logically instead of disciplining emotionally. Some examples of Level 1 interventions are included here. Of course, be sure to only use interventions that are appropriate for your age group and that are approved by your school. Student-teacher conferences should be brief and allow for student accountability. In other words, instead of the teacher doing all of the talking and telling the student what's wrong, the teacher should ask the student why he or she is being corrected, what he or she will do to self-correct, and then the teacher will warn the student that the next infraction will result in a consequence, and of course tell that student what the consequence is. In order to refrain from this becoming a power struggle, do not ask the student to change their seat publicly in front of their peers and then stare the student down until they comply. A better way is to let the student know at the end of class or at the beginning of the next class that he or she will have a new seat effective immediately for their behavior. An alternative is to go up to the student privately and in a low voice inform the student that beginning tomorrow they will have a new assigned seat. When changing a student's assigned seat does not help solve the problem, the next intervention could be isolation in a timeout area or in another classroom. The idea here is to remove the student from his or her audience and allow for some distance between you and the student while he or she reflects on the choices that were made. Be sure to determine the location ahead of time and have a plan to know whether or not the student has arrived at the appropriate location. Make sure the student has plenty of work to do, especially when being sent to another classroom, so that he or she does not begin to disrupt the other class. Finally, decide and communicate to the student what should be done at the end of the isolation. Giving students time away from their peers during lunch is a great deterrent for some students. Find out if this is feasible at your school and decide who will be responsible for monitoring the student if you are not able to. Reflective writing is a strategy meant to promote self-reflection, ownership, and problem-solving. Reflective writing is not synonymous with repetitive writing, such as writing, "I will not talk out in class" 50 times. Repetitive writing is not an effective strategy anyways. Look in your module for examples of reflective writing. Remember that the more specific the writing is to the behavior, the more likely it is to be effective, and the less likely it will be to turn into a forum for venting against the teacher. Here are some additional tips for reflective writing. The writing should have a purpose and be meaningful. Students should not repeat writing assignments consecutively. Read the writing as soon as possible, preferably with the student present. Do not tear up the writing or throw it away in front of the student. The goal, after all, is to show growth, not to turn the student away from writing. When contacting parents, wording is critical. Make sure the parent knows that it is the behavior you have a problem with and not the child. Many parents, especially of older students, are unsure of what they can do from home. Offer some suggestions like, check his folder for a new list of vocabulary words every Monday, or we have an upcoming project and your child may need to use your home computer for it. End the phone call by inviting the parent to come out and visit your classroom and observe you teach. A sample conversation with the parent might go like this. Good evening, this is Miss Lopez calling from Public Middle School. May I please speak with Miss Jones? Good evening, Miss Jones. Is this a good time for you to talk? Great. I was calling to give you an update on Jessica's progress in class. She's been talkative these last couple of weeks and it's affecting her performance. Jessica and I have been having some conversations about this, and she suggested that we try a new seating arrangement. That worked for a few days, but she's back to talking again. I know that it's important for the both of us and for Jessica that this not become a problem, so I'm calling this evening to make you aware. I would like to extend an invitation for you to come out and visit our class. Jessica is in my class every day at 10 o'clock. Of course, we know that Jessica will be on her best behavior when you're there, but I would still love for you to come out and see the culture and structure of my class so that you can also explain to Jessica why the excessive talking is a distraction for me and the class. Thank you so much for your continued support from home. Of course, an actual conversation with a parent is not going to be so one-sided, but that example gives you some examples of phrases that you can use when talking to the parents. Be sure to document all communications with parents, whether it be emails, phone calls, or conferences. Of course, the best course is the proactive one. Making early connections with parents before any problems occur will establish a parent-teacher relationship early in the year and sets a positive tone between you and the students and you and the parents. Positive feedback is a critical piece to Level 1 intervention. Give positive feedback anytime a Level 1 intervention is used and the behavior improves. Let the student know that you have noticed the change in behavior and thank him and encourage him to continue the good behavior. Be careful not to overuse any intervention strategy. All Level 1 intervention strategies are more effective when used progressively. An important thing to know is that no strategy is effective unless the teacher has established a good relationship with the student at the beginning of the year.